You've heard the shocking claim. The first slave owner in America was a black man named Anthony Johnson. But what if I told you that this story is a twisted misrepresentation of history designed to obscure the true origins of slavery in the United States? Welcome to You Are History. This narrative has been manipulated to diminish the role of white Europeans in establishing slavery and to falsely suggest that African Americans were complicit in their own oppression. Let's clear the air about Anthony Johnson, a figure often misrepresented in discussions about the origins of American slavery. Anthony Johnson arrived in the Virginia colony in the early 1620s, not as a slave, but as an indentured servant. This was a common practice where individuals agreed to work for a certain period in exchange for passage to America, food, shelter, and eventually land or money. Johnson, after fulfilling his indenture, gained his freedom and became one of the early free black landowners in Virginia. He went on to own a modest farm and even secured the services of indentured servants himself. In a notable 1655 legal case, Johnson fought for the return of John Casor, a black indentured servant whom a white neighbor claimed. The court initially ruled that Casor owed Johnson service for life. While this ruling might seem to echo slavery, it was rooted in the norms of indentured servitude prevalent at the time. The decision was eventually reversed, indicating the complexities of servitude laws before the full establishment of racial chattel slavery. It's critical to understand the distinction between indentured servitude and chattel slavery. The former was contractual and offered a path to freedom, while the latter was a lifelong inheritable status imposed without consent, primarily on Africans and their descendants. This transition to racial chattel slavery was not codified overnight, but evolved through a series of laws in the late 17th century designed to solidify the racial hierarchy. European involvement in the establishment and expansion of slavery in the New World was monumental. The Portuguese and Spanish were pioneers of the transatlantic slave trade in the 15th century, forcibly bringing Africans to work in their colonies. This brutal practice was later adopted by the British, French, and Dutch, leading to a widespread system of racial slavery in the Americas. In colonial America, the burgeoning plantation economy, particularly in the southern colonies, created a voracious demand for labor. Tobacco, cotton, and sugar plantations became the backbone of the colonial economy, and slavery became seen as essential for economic growth. Prominent landowners such as Hugh Gwynn owned and traded slaves as economic assets, a practice that became increasingly racialized and codified into law. By the late 17th century, Virginia and other colonies began passing laws that explicitly made slavery a racial and permanent condition. These laws marked a pivotal shift from the earlier ambiguous legal status of African laborers, solidifying the dehumanization and brutal exploitation of black people based on race. The narrative that positions Anthony Johnson as America's first slave owner grossly distorts historical timelines and contexts. It attempts to shift the blame from the systemic and institutionalized practices established by European powers to a single individual's court case. This distortion not only obscures the true origins of slavery, but also undermines the systemic nature of racial oppression that was engineered and maintained by colonial powers. The story of Anthony Johnson is a cautionary tale about the dangers of oversimplified historical narratives. As we strive to build a more just and equitable society, it is crucial that we confront and correct these distortions. Understanding the true origins and evolution of slavery is essential to addressing the legacies of racial injustice and moving forward. If you found this video insightful and want to learn more about the untold stories of our past, please like, share, and subscribe to You Are History. Together, we can foster a deeper, more nuanced appreciation of history and its lasting legacies.